Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of PEPTalk, Productive Environment Podcast. I am Andrea Anderson, joined here by our founder of Productive Environment Institute, Barbara Hempill. Hi, Barbara. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Good to see you.
You too. I'm excited about our topic today, and I wonder.
There's no question that it's the topic of the hour. I don't know, when you just say the word email, you can watch people's faces and see what.
Exactly. And then to see this, stop checking your emails. Like, what? Stop checking your email. What does that mean? What do we mean by that? So you guys, just to give you some, I'm kind of talking a little bit to let a few of you get on live with us that are going to join us today. So also just a reminder, wherever you're joining us from, please feel free to enter a comment or a question in the chat from whatever platform you're joining us from. And we would love for you to jump over to our YouTube channel if you're on a different platform. If you're on YouTube or before, during, or after our stream, and like and subscribe to our channel. We'd really appreciate that. So yeah, this is an important topic. I know Barbara is known as the paper tiger lady. And Barbara, you've been talking about paper for many, 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 many years. But we have a brand new tiger. It's not brand new, but newer than paper, right? And that is the digital tiger, Taming the Digital Tiger. In fact, that's the name of a book you co-wrote with Judy Girton, Taming the Digital Tiger, Gmail edition. So yeah, in addition to all the paper that many people still have, some people have a lot less paper now than they used to, but many people still have a lot of paper. But guess what? Everybody has email, right? Everybody that we talk to, everybody that's in our world has email. And one of the things that we do a lot, those of you that are feeling a little overwhelmed with your email, feeling overwhelmed or overwhelmed with your email, is we hear from people all the time that they have thousands of emails in their inbox. And I can get there too. Trust me, I can get there too. But Barbara, the 4 questions that you teach, and I'll ask you to share these, where if something is organized or not, and or 4 questions. And let me just, before you do that, I want to say that, or do you have a system that works, or are you organized? And for me, even though my email can get into the hundreds now, I try not to let it get too far into the thousands, but if it does, I don't panic, because I can answer yes to these questions that Barbara's about to share. So see if you guys can answer how you answer these questions. And if you're joining us online, just enter into the chat. Regarding your email and your email system, Barbara, what questions would you like to ask them?
Well, the first one is, does the way you handle email work?
Yes or no? Does the way you handle your email work? Meaning, is it
nothing important slips through the cracks, and you feel comfortable, the main thing would be that nothing important slips through the cracks. I think is really the issue. Then the second question is the one where a lot of people can say yes to the first question, but the second question is, do you like it? And that's so like, okay, do you like how many hours a day you're spending on it? Do you like how many emails there are in maybe not in your inbox, because maybe you processed the inbox, but you put it in folders, lots and lots of folders, and maybe folders multi-layered, which makes it really a bigger issue.
Yeah.
And then number 3 is, does it work for the people it impacts? So then that's the question of, and one of the things I talk about in companies, I do consulting with companies on email protocol, which is, for example, and this is a big one, and there isn't a right or wrong answer. And Andrew, you and I've talked about it. It's like, okay, when somebody sends you something, do you email back and say thank you?
Right.
The farm girl in me that was raised to be polite says yes, you always say thank you. But the productivity side of me says, but I'm junking up her email with something else that doesn't matter. But on the other hand, if I don't say that, then I don't really know if she got it. So it doesn't have a right or wrong, which is the reason within a company or within a team, it's very appropriate to create email protocol that says our protocol is to say thank you or to not say thank you. And that way that kind of takes you off the hook. So that's one example of doesn't work for the other. Or another one that I put in with a company that this is a big law firm, and it was either Washington or New York, I don't remember which, where they banned BCC, blind carbon copy, was just absolutely banned, because usually that is used either just because you're lazy or because you want to prove that you sent it. It's like a CYA kind of a thing. So that's one. Then the fourth question is the one, Andrea, that you brought up. You said, even if your email does get to the hundreds or even the thousands, you don't need to panic, because can you recover quickly?
Right.
And we say that all the time with physical clutter. We say that, it's like if you come into my house or office at any time, it might look physically cluttered, but I don't need to panic because I know what to do with it. But if yours gets behind, if the email gets behind, it's like, what does that do to you? So those are the questions. Does it work? Do you like it? Does it work for the people it impacts? And can you recover quickly? And if you don't answer yes to all of those, or you can't answer yes to all of those, then I hope you'll join us.
That's right. That's right. That's great. And I can. Thank you. Thanks to our systems, I can answer yes. I couldn't always answer yes to that.
Me too.
I would get anxiety if it got over. And I'm not a, inbox zero person. Like, I understand things come and go. Like you always say, Barbara, life gets messy. Things are coming and going. Don't expect, you can drive yourself crazy trying to have zero.
Well, it's also one of those examples about, when we were talking about physical clutter, paper particularly, we talk about what level of clutter are you willing to live with and how long to clean it up. So I've used the example over and over where I clean up once a week and it has to take me less than 30 minutes. So with email, a lot of people, it's how many emails in their inbox are comfortable. Some people say one screen, I want it to be, which is kind of mine, but mine is like, as long as it's less than one screen, then I'm okay with that. So identifying what level, I mean, again, it doesn't have a right or wrong.
Right. Yeah, that's great. And Dwayne, I have a comment here from Dwayne Linda Buckaloo Miller, and I'm assuming since you sent this as a comment on Facebook that you're okay with us sharing it publicly, and I appreciate your honesty here that you have 25,484 unread emails. So first of all, let us know, are we talking to Dwayne or are we talking to Linda? Just curious. Just send another comment. Okay. Yes, ma'am. So and I want you to know that I have had that. I have had over that. It's Linda. Okay, Linda, thank you. I have had over that, and our systems, or just a few of the things that we're going to teach you today, actually, not even the full-blown system, but a few things we're going to teach you today helps you get those down and minimize that issue. So no problem. All right. So, well, let me ask you this, Linda, before we move on, since you're sharing, is that something you would like to change? Some people may say, I'm fine with, even 100,000 emails because I can do a search and I can find what I need. Do you want, do those 25,000 emails cause you stress and anxiety, or are you fine with it? That's a question. We're not here to try to change anybody if they don't want to change the system. So let us know that. All right. So while you're typing that in, and anybody else, she says, yes, I don't like emails, stress. Yes. Okay. Thank you for that. Linda, let me show your comment there. Yep. Okay. Good to know. All right. So anybody else, because Linda has been so kind enough to share the real deal. So if anybody else is watching this, enter how many emails you have if you're brave enough to do that. And I don't want it, when I say brave, I don't want anybody to feel judged in any way. because there are things you can do about it if it does bother you. Some people may not bother. So
well, and I want to say, just put in something here, an example. I literally had a vice president of a company who was a client, and we were doing what we call a productive environment day, where we were, as a company, everybody was cleaning out their email. And the vice president had 43,000 unread emails in her inbox when we started. And 3 hours later, it was down to 4,000. So it just shows, if you have a system, that you can get some amazing results very, very quickly. And it all goes back to something that this whole company started with, which is clutter is postponed decisions. And what most people do is, and a lot of people do it on their phones before they even get out of bed in the morning. It's open the phone, open email, open, close, open, close, open, close, open, close. And before you know it, 45 minutes have gone by and nothing's changed except your mood, because you're feeling like, oh, I'm so overwhelmed. So that's why we titled this Stop Checking Your Email.
Yes. And we are going to tell you what to do instead. We are going to tell you what to do instead, I promise. Let me see what Lisa is saying here. Hold on. Let's see. Lisa says, I have about 1,100 emails. A lot of them are just notifications for Amazon delivery and Instacart feedback hours. So not necessarily spam. So just a lot of incoming email. Yes. Lisa, I feel you. I get those too. The email deliveries, I get Instacart too. So yes, Zoom, your recording has finished processing, all of these notifications. So there are certain things that you can do. Now, I do have a tool that I'm going to share on our upcoming webinar. So, I have to do a plug for that. We have a webinar coming up. If you're watching us live or watching this on February 20, last week of February of 2024, depending on when you're watching this, we have a webinar coming up this coming Thursday. Okay, so it's go to just jot this down, or our assistant will put it there. She had already did it. productiveenvironment.com/webinar, because we're going to go into more detail about the tools and the things that we use. There's only so much we can do on one of these lives. But let me just say this, and then we're going to give you what the do this instead is. One of the main things that we want to do when you have that many emails starting out, and when I say that many, I mean that could be even over 500, is we want to do a clear out. There's a way to do it. There's a couple ways to do it. You can declare email bankruptcy, as Barbara you've talked about before. Just, I don't know that anybody's brave enough to just delete them completely, and I don't know that you need to do that. But you could create a new folder and call it everything before March 2024. Move everything in your inbox into that folder, so you're starting with a clean slate. That's just one very oversimplified way to do it. There are other ways that there's a tool that I use that I'm going to share in the webinar that just really helps you make the decisions very, very quickly, because clutter is postponed decisions. But once you've done that, let's just say we help you get down to a manageable amount, get rid of all of those thousands, especially those notifications and reminders and things, and get down to a manageable amount. Going forward, there are things that you can do besides checking your email. And that word is process. Process your email versus check your email. And we're going to talk about, there's a couple of things. It's not just the how you do it. There's a mindset shift involved, right? So I'm going to share these, and then Barbara, we can discuss. So the mindset shift between the two, between processing your email versus checking your email. So when you check your email, this approach involves quickly scanning your inbox to see if there are any new messages. How many people do that? It's often done with a reactive mindset, where you respond to emails as they come in without much thought to prioritization or organization. Okay. Now I can say that I have a system. I use the system that Barbara and I teach. I process my email probably 80% of the time using the system. There is still that 20% where I'm just like everybody else and I'm reactively checking. I just came back from a trip. We had 10 hours in the car each way, basically. And I was just checking. I wasn't processing. I was just checking. And responding here and there. So yes, I still do some of that, but I have mastered the processing at least 80% of the time. So what's the difference? Processing email, this approach involves a more proactive mindset. Instead of simply reacting to emails, you take deliberate steps to categorize, prioritize, and act upon each message in a structured manner. Doesn't mean you necessarily reply or do the next action, but you're taking an action. And as in an action. And moving it's one step in the process. So Barbara, what are your thoughts on the mindset shift between checking and processing email?
Well, when you're checking email, you are being reactive. You're just reacting to other people. And if you just check email and then respond to what you're basically saying, what the rest of the world wants from me is more important than what I need to do. And whereas processing email is having your goals in mind, what is important to you, and then processing it in relationship to that. So, and as we've talked about, and Andrea, you introduced this concept to me years ago, was clutters postpone decisions. It's not enough to make a decision. You have to have a way to implement the decision. And so when we do the webinar, we're going to be talking about what are the ways that you implement when you are processing and you make a decision, what are the ways that you implement that decision?
Right. It could be delegating it. It could be putting it into another folder, but be careful. And we'll talk about that on the webinar. Yes, you might have a few folders or a few labels, depending on what email platform you use. But the more the more levels you go or layers deep you go with folders, the more complicated your system gets with physical files as well as digital files. So we'll talk more about that when we connect. And then Kathy with New Path Productivity, she's one of our certified productive environment specialists. She said it seems like a suitable distinction, process versus check, but there is a subtle distinction. Yes, but there is a huge difference. There truly is a huge difference. Because like I said, I was in the car, I was clearly just checking, like, time's going by, I wasn't in my productive environment.
Well, and it also ends up being a form of procrastination, right? I mean, that's one of the reasons we check email. I mean, I plead guilty. If there's something I'm supposed to do that's difficult and I really don't want to do it, it's like, oh, let me just check email first. I'm better than I used to be, but I still fall into that trap every now and then. So.
That's right. We're not perfect. And that goes back to those 4 questions. Does it work? Yes. Do you like it? Yes. Does it work for the people it impacts? Yes, most of the time. And can you recover quickly? We can recover quickly.
Well, I think the other thing is the quote that I've used from my mother-in-law, the polio survivor, which she had, and I love this because it applies to email. Every day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. So it's like not settling for where you are now. And that means if you use our 5-step productive environment process, it's always state your vision. So one of the things, if you join us on our webinar, one of the things you could be thinking about between now and then is, if my email worked the way I wanted it to, and if I weren't stressed, if I could live a life where I weren't stressed about me, what would that look like? What would that feel like? So without a goal, the people perish, as it says in Proverbs, and it relates to email exactly the same. What is your goal for email?
That's right. Excellent. So let's talk about frequency, because I just shared, I was in the car for all these hours. Now, I was not driving, so don't check your email while you're driving. Not driving. But as far as frequency, Barbara said, you said use it as a form of procrastination. So we're working on a project, we're trying to focus, and it's like you get stuck on something. You're like, let me just check email. It's almost like, I heard someone describe it as the drip. It's like having an IV hooked up to us throughout the day, where we need that little drip. We need that new hit.
Well, it's addictive.
The dopamine hit.
Checking email is very addictive, and actually research shows that it was designed that way. The designers of technology designed it so we'd be addicted to it, and guess what? We are.
Imagine.
Mhm.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about frequency. So checking email, people who check their email tend to do so frequently throughout the day, as we talked about, sometimes even multiple times per hour, interrupting their workflow. Okay. Can anybody relate to that? Are you the kind of person? And sometimes I am still. Check your email, and you do so, tend to do so frequently throughout the day, sometimes even multiple times per hour, interrupting your workflow. So the opposite of that, or the alternative to that, Lisa says yes. Okay. Yeah. The alternative to that is processing email. Those who process their email set aside specific blocks of time dedicated solely to managing their inbox. This allows for greater focus on the task at hand without constant interruptions. Okay. Linda says she does not check her email throughout the day, but Lisa does. Okay. Um, so yeah, so set aside specific blocks of time. That takes intention. That takes being really intentional about it. So honestly, I think that there is room for for both. I feel like having the processing email system is important to keep on top of your tasks and your projects. If unless your email is only notifications and orders and things like that, if that's the case, then no big deal. But if you actually have to respond to people or do tasks or do projects, then it's important to be able to have that time where you can make turn those emails into actions.
So I think, Andrew, one of the things is that's important that and this fits in with our whole concept of productive environment. There isn't a right or wrong way. There isn't. And for every person who does it one way, there's somebody else who does it exactly the opposite, and they're equally successful. So the question is, what will you do? And helping, and part of why I think what we offer clients is so helpful is we're not saying this is what you should do, but what are the things that you should do. In the time we have left, let's give some people some very specific tips for things that they can begin to apply, because I want them at the end to be able to say, okay, I can do that. There's something I can do right away. So
all right, guys. So if you're taking notes, we have 7 tips for you. Okay. All right. So number 1, set specific times. Schedule designated times during the day for email processing rather than checking it constantly. Now, again, you can have 80% processing and a little bit of checking, but set aside specific times to do that. Okay. Prioritize emails. Sort emails based on their importance and urgency, tackling high priority items first. Now, again, you're not going to be able to really do this until we get rid of the backlog. We've got to get your email down to a manageable space. So make sure you come to our webinar to find out how to do that. But then once you've done that, you can have the room to breathe and prioritize your emails. Any thoughts on that, Barbara? Or you want me to keep going?
No, just keep going.
Okay. All right. So depending on your email platform, use labels or folders. Gmail is labels. Organize emails into categories using labels or folders to easily locate them later. Again, that is a huge warning. Be careful with how many folders and labels you create. Okay. There is an optimal number that we'll talk about on Thursday. Were you going to say something, Barbara?
No, no, that's fine.
All right. The next one, unsubscribe and filter. So I believe it was Lisa, you were talking about all of the notifications. Yeah, you can filter those out. You can unsubscribe from any newsletters that you guys aren't reading. And you can filter things so that they never hit your inbox. If you don't want them gone completely, but you just don't want to see them in your inbox, you can create a filter to send them over to another folder or even automatically archive them. You don't necessarily, you might want to search for it later. So have it, but you don't need to see it in your inbox.
So that's an example of what we talk about all the time about half of any job is using the right tool. And email platforms, regardless of what email platform you use, there are so many tools within the platform that most people do not have any idea that they exist. And so that's one of the things that we want to teach people too.
Yeah, and we'll put these in the description box on our YouTube channel. So go back in and look at these, and then go to your email platform and use your help button, the search, and search for help with unsubscribing or filtering. Okay, as an example. All right, another tip is utilize templates and shortcuts. Create email templates or use keyboard shortcuts to streamline responses and save time.
I have to say that I've never mastered keyboard shortcuts anywhere. That is not something that I have ever managed to do, but I love templates. I use them a lot because I love to communicate with people. It's one of my favorite things. But I also like to make sure that it's personalized. So a template means I don't have to type everything over again, but I can put in 2 or 3 sentences which customize it. So I'm a huge fan of templates.
Yeah, it gives you a place to start. Yeah. Okay. Practice the 2-minute rule. If an email can be responded to or acted upon in 2 minutes or less, do it immediately to avoid unnecessary backlog.
And if you don't have 2 minutes, then don't open it.
Well, that's a good point. Don't open it. And if you're processing your email, that's your time. You're processing it. So you're saying, okay, I can answer this now because that's your processing time. Or you're going to put it in a folder that says it's later or review or to do, so that you do come back to it, but you're getting it out of your inbox. All right. So there's some more.
Well, one of the things there's a good, for those of you who've been in our office boot camps where we process paper, we know that one of the things that really gets people in trouble is we're just trying to get them to sort, but it's like, oh, well, this will only take me this long, I'll do it. And so then they don't get through very many papers because they spent too many 2-minute times putting the phone number in their phone or doing something like that. And that's where the relationship of how we manage email and how we manage paper is so similar.
That is so true. We get sidetracked.
Yeah.
Linda says, let's see. Once you answer delete email, I guess that's where folders come in. Yeah, it depends. We can't say delete it at this point, Linda. It depends. Come to our webinar on Thursday. It's a free webinar. Come to the webinar. We'll talk more about that. Lisa said she had no idea that templates were a thing. Thank you for the tip on that. Absolutely. That's a huge time saver. All right, the last one, and Cannery says, sending this love and prayer to signal that we are watching all the way from India. Awesome.
Very good. Welcome.
Yes. All right, the last one, and Barbara, you have a different take on this when it comes to paper. I'm curious what you think about this for email. Implement the touch once rule. So it says aim to handle each email only once, either by responding immediately, delegating, scheduling a task, or archiving it for future reference.
Well, we're kind of mixing apples and oranges here. Okay.
Yep.
So with paper, a lot of people say, oh, I know, when you get organized, you should just handle it only once. Well, handle it only once doesn't work, because if you put a pile of papers in front of you and say, I'm going to handle only once, this takes 30 seconds, this takes 2 minutes, this takes 5 minutes, and then it's time to go somewhere else, and you didn't get through the pile of papers, and the most important paper was the bottom. So handle it only once doesn't work. The way you adapt it is to say, handle it only once to make a decision. And in paper, we call it the magic 6. So if you've been in our office transformation, you know what the magic 6 is. Well, you need the equivalent in email. So we're going to teach you that on the class. So when you handle it, you need to make a decision. It's like you don't pull it out of the inbox, look at it, and stick it back in again. So it's exactly the same. If you go to the trouble of opening the email, then it needs to be processed somewhere.
That's right. That's exactly right. And actually, Linda, I can answer your question. You said once you answered delete email, I guess that's where folders come in. You can decide very quick. That is a quick decision you can make is, do you feel comfortable letting it go? Like, what's the worst thing that could happen if you deleted that email? And if you can live with that answer, then sure, answer the email, delete. If you're not sure, Barbara says this, I'm going to give you guys a tip here. Barbara says, if in doubt, keep it. So if you're not sure, you don't have to delete it, but archive it. Put it somewhere. And archive is keeping it under, if you use Gmail, archive goes to all mail. It goes to your all mail folder. But yeah, so if you're comfortable, like, hey, I don't need that. I know 100% I don't need this. You can delete it. But if not, then just archive it, and it's out of our goal is to get it out of your inbox. So your inbox should not, right now, your inbox, some of you, your inbox is other people's agenda. It's other people who send us.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second and say the main goal is not to get it out of the inbox. The main goal is to be sure that you do what you need. What are the priorities? That's the highest priority. So when we're talking about putting together a system, the system has to be designed so that you can be confident that nothing important is slipping through the cracks, and that when you need something, you could find it. That's what this is all about.
Right. So it's leaving your inbox, but it's going somewhere else that an action will be taken upon it, unless it's just keeping it for future reference, which
unless, okay, so here's a beautiful example of the art. I have had clients, and you probably have too, Andrea, where they actually use their inbox as their to-do. So they take everything out except what they're going to do, and that stays in that. So again, there's an example of the art. It doesn't have a right or wrong, but it's being intentional. So we say a productive environment is an intentional setting in which you can accomplish your work and enjoy your life and enable others to do the same. And we want to help you make your email a productive environment.
Exactly. If you do choose to keep your emails, your to-do list as your to-do list, it should be your to-do list, not somebody else's. If you've decided that you're going to take action on that, then you can leave it there. All right. Well, that's it for today, guys. We just wanted to pop in and give you these a few tips to get you started. We will put them in the description box, but do join us for our webinar. It's free. It is this Thursday coming up, depending on when you're watching this, February 29th. We have a leap year. So productiveenvironment.com/webinar, and we will see you there.
Ask the question, what's the one thing that has to happen with my email for me to feel happy with my progress? And the answer to that question is what you want to listen for on the webinar.
That's right. That's right. Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great day. Thank you, Barbara. Bye, everybody.